I'm Marilyn Priel. Welcome to The Better Part. Some American World War II veterans are being honored with an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. We'll hear more about what they do there and how these trips are arranged. Stay with us. Our guests are John Armenta, who is director of the local branch of Honor Flight Organization, and two veterans, Robert Skugard and Stan Ferris, who have just returned from their honor flight to Washington, D.C. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to begin with John. Would you tell us about the Honor Flight Organization?
Yes. Honor Flight Network is a national organization, approximately 140 hubs, of which we have one in the Bay Area. Each one is a 501c3 independent nonprofit. Our sole purpose is to take veterans, local veterans, in our case we focus on World War II veterans, and fly them out to Washington, D.C. to see the memorials that they haven't seen. People in their late 80s and 90s don't tend to travel very much, so they haven't seen the World War II memorial and the other memorials that are...
Which were made for them.
Exactly. They were made for them, but they haven't seen them. So we've taken that charge to get them out there at no cost to them. Nationally, we have, at the end of 2014, I believe we're over 140,000 veterans that we've flown nationally. Locally, we did a study in 2013 that there were 90,000 World War II veterans in the in California, maybe 50,000 in the South, 40,000 in the North, and that we had 20,000 in the Bay Area. And when we formed our hub, we estimate that only about 100 had flown with other hubs. So we formed our organization here locally, which serves all the counties that touch the Bay, 9 counties. Additionally, we cover San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz.
My goodness.
But
that's ambitious.
It's ambitious, and we're getting in applications every day. This program will help to get the word out, and we hope to have some more veterans.
How are they selected then? They send an application?
Yes.
They get that online, or how do they find out about it?
We have a website, which veterans will either go to the website, or we make presentations to Rotary, to American Legion, VFW, Lions clubs. We have several volunteers that's what they do, is presentations. A show like this will probably end up with 2 or 3 applications from veterans, just getting the word out, what they hear about it. They're selected based on their World War II service dates. They have to have served during World War II through the end of 46. So there's a window there. We then, the sooner the application comes in, they're put in line. Right now we have about 70 World War II veterans waiting to fly. Additionally, we have maybe 20 or 30 Korean War veterans and about 15 Vietnam.
So they come after you finish the World War II?
Yes, our priority right now is World War II veterans, and we did 4 trips this year, and we'll do 5 trips next year, hopefully, if we can raise enough money. And that'll be, each trip we take about 26 World War II veterans. So we hope to get, we're working the list down, and if we can raise enough money, we'll fly them as we've got the applications in.
I think it's so wonderful that this is being done. And fellows, I'm eager to hear your personal stories. So Stan, would you tell us where you served during the war and what you were doing?
Yes, I served in the South Pacific. I went over there at the end of 1943, and I was over there 16 months, and I hit many of the islands while I was over there, and eventually wound up in a squadron of dive bombers.
Take your hat off so we can see your lovely eyes. Thank you.
Yeah, and came back to the United States just about the time President Roosevelt died. Went to another training program, upgrading our skills, and then we were forming a new squadron. The war in Japan ended, and then shortly after that, I left the service.
Okay, and what about you, Robert?
Well, I graduated high school 1945, and that seems like it was a million years ago. But there, I went to Fort Meade, where we got our shots and everything, inoculations and everything. And everybody was walking around like this all the time, because they shot us in the latissimus, you know, and boy, it was sore as hell. I took a train to Camp Robinson, Arkansas. That was next to Little Rock. And 2 months there, 2 months, assigned to a holding company. And while I was there, this holding company people had to do something. And I chanced to guard some German prisoners. And that was, it was about 8 months after the war was over with Germany. But we didn't have guns or anything like that. We just watched them, you know, do the duties. And from there, I volunteered for the paratroops. And 4 weeks, 4 weeks I went to Fort Benning. And I went through the training, all that went around. 30-foot towers, 2 50-foot towers, glider rides, packing some of our chutes. And there were about 200 people who started in the class, and they ended up about 125 afterwards.
Really trimmed it down, huh?
Yeah, I sure did, yeah. And I was assigned to 82nd Airborne, 505 PIR, headquarters company, 2nd Battalion. And that was all, I was stateside all the time. So anyway, that was my history of everything there, you know.
I asked you to take that hat off. They're great hats. I just love them. And those were given to you by the honor flight people.
Yes, they were. Yeah, right.
They're great. Well, so tell us a little bit more about guarding those German prisoners. That must have been interesting.
I didn't know what was happening. They were places they didn't have. They couldn't go anywhere. The Germany was bombed mercilessly, and they had no homes or anything to go to. But anyway, they stayed in the States, and whatever happened to them, I have no idea what happened to them afterwards. But anyway, it was an experience. It was an experience, you know.
Well, Stan, tell us about. Do you have any things you'd like to share that really remain in your memory of your war experience?
Yeah. Oh, a couple of incidences when I was on the island of Guadalcanal during the war for a while. We were about ready to come back, and one evening, it was in 1945, I was sleeping in a Quonset hut towards the end of the building when all of a sudden there was a loud explosion. I looked out the back end of the screened area, and the whole sky seemed to be flame. It was the largest disaster for the Coast Guard. They had a ship in loading ammunition and fuel that blew up. 200 and some odd people were killed on that flight.
Oh, wow.
I really, the next day we found that our Quonset hut, which was quite long, with about 5 or 6 of us in there, had blown off its
Oh
foundation.
my goodness.
And on the way to our chow hall, there was a breach from one of the guns that was blown all the way from the ship in. We were only about 200 yards off the water, so the smoke, the articles that were floating up on the beach, that lasted all day the next day. It was some. They alerted. They thought it was a submarine action, and then later on, I think it was discovered that they decided it was an accident, some way or another, and double loading it set off a blast.
But you lived through it.
I lived
We're
through
glad,
it.
we're glad to-
And there were 2 on the ship that lived through it. They were.
Oh my goodness.
They were in
only 2.
up front in front of the ship, and they got injured, but they got into the water before the boat sank. The ship, I should say, not boat.
Yeah.
Well,
It's about an incident.
that would stand out in your memory forever.
And then on my second bombing run into the area around Babal, one of our bombs didn't drop off from the plane. No, I flew in a 2-seater plane. I was the gunner. And what happened there was that the bomb was armed, but it didn't drop from the plane. So coming back, we had to leave the squadron, and we had to get rid of the bomb or parachute out, because if we landed, the bomb would probably go off. It was armed. Unfortunately, the pilot knew how to get rid of the bomb. He jerked the plane from one side to the other, from one side to the other, and then the bomb dropped, and because we lost all that weight, we shot up a couple thousand feet. But we were by ourselves then. Nobody to take care of us, so we had to come back to the airport without the rest of the squadron, which didn't, we weren't bothered by any enemy activity. So.
Pilots knew how to fly an airplane then. It wasn't so a computer like it is now.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Took a
The
lot of
pilots,
skill.
I flew with a lot of pilots during my training and during there. And some of them are amazing. There were a lot of accidents that happened in training. We lost a couple people in training, so it wasn't unusual to have something happen. And we had an incident where we were on a navigation flight. We were at the extended part of it over off of Florida, and oil line broke in our engine. I was alerted to get ready to go into the water, and what happened was we kept on flying very low, dipping down. I always thought we would be going in pretty soon. I had these machine guns that weighed about 110 pounds I had to do something with. So I held on to them because I didn't want them to come in to me. Anyway, we went down, sent a mayday. We came in, when we got to the airstrip, there was an ambulance, a fire truck, other procedures that were enacted. Nobody was coming into the airport. Nobody was leaving the airport. And then we safely got in. But when I got out of the plane, the pilot's windshield was completely covered with oil. His glasses were completely covered with oil. And the plane was a mess, but we made it safely.
You made it. Boy, you just had some narrow escapes. And
Yeah.
you know, it's no matter how many movies civilians watch about the war and everything, it's just really, we cannot really know what it's like unless you've been there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of boggles one's mind.
I think because you're young, I was young.
Yeah.
That made a difference.
You roll with the punches.
You do, you know, and it's coming at you bit by bit.
Yeah.
Well, tell us now about this trip to Washington. Robert, tell us what you thought was wonderful about that
It was
trip.
amazing. It was amazing. everything is so green there too, and so much building is going on too. And that was my hometown. Yeah. There was so much building going. I could not find my way if I went back right now. But it was an amazing trip, yeah. And
what was it like being with all the guys, all the war veterans?
And I want to say something about Carl Stewart and the nurse Connie Johnson. Yeah, they did a marvelous job over there too. Yeah,
they were there to make sure that everyone stayed healthy, and so they said you actually had guardians go with you in case you became ill there or something, and they had this nurse, Connie Johnson, who went and kind of looked after everybody. So it was very well organized.
Hats to them, really. Yeah.
And then you actually saw the memorials. You went to Arlington, and
yes.
What was your favorite thing there?
Well,
if you couldn't choose one.
They were all kind of favorite. I really enjoyed the World War II memorial. I went around to the various locations, California and stuff like that, and got pictures taken. But they were all great. I just enjoyed having the opportunity to spend a little time there. I was amazed. Connie, I have to remind, Connie always came up and said, "Are you okay?" She always came up and said, you know, that. And Carl did a great job, as he said, Bob said. But the War Memorial, the last one you go to is Iwo Jima or the Marines Memorial. And boy, your heart just kind of drops when you see that. When I see that, I think about a lot of Marines. I see.
Arlington Cemetery, I have some friends that are buried there, 5 or 6 of them, you know, and I didn't get to see them at all, but they were buried. But anyway, that was an experience, you know.
Arlington was a great, Arlington was a great spot. I'd been to that ceremony before, but it was even more enjoyable being with the veterans there. And that they allowed 4 of our veterans to place a new wreath.
Yeah, I know.
And that was,
going to mention that.
That was quite a serious thing.
That was a worthwhile, well-had trip.
It worth going up all that grade to get there.
It must feel good to be recognized and you know, acknowledge what you've done and the service that you did, and to be there with so many other people to tell you, exchange your stories and experiences and camaraderie of it all. And
to meet them, to meet new people that have the same background that you, you know, like I met one person in our group that went to the same high school I did, you know. I never knew. I met a person that's in the same town I am, and I never knew. And knowingly, you know, when you get together with veterans, you had a common
there's a
thing.
Connection there.
There's a connection.
Automatic connection.
Very good.
Well, you were talking about how well organized it was with the nurse and everything. Now, John, you have orientation meetings prior to these trips. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, when we're getting ready to select the veterans to go on the trip, we have a phone interview with them to talk about their health and what they've done in the service, and kind of brief them a little bit. About 2 weeks before the flight, we have an orientation meeting. The American Legion post in Santa Clara offers up their facility. They put on a lunch. We bring in the veterans, at which point they can meet their guardians if they're not traveling with the guardian from the family. About 20 of the 26 veterans will bring a family member as a guardian, a grandson, a granddaughter. Sons and daughters getting a little harder because a 90-year-old has a 70-year-old
Who
guardian.
maybe can't walk.
And who can't push a wheelchair very well. But in any case,
I got a little pushing. I'll push you once now.
Yeah.
everybody's a team, remember
I know.
that. In any case, the orientation session, which we're having one tomorrow at the American Legion for the next flight, which leaves on the 22nd of October, we bring them together, we have them introduce themselves, and actually, I think Scoogie and I were talking, the last session, the last orientation session, I think it was you that was saying what you did during the war, and somebody else said, I was in that outfit too, which
Yeah.
I guess you didn't, had never met him?
I'd never met him,
Yeah.
no. I was 82nd Airborne, and he was 11th Airborne.
Okay.
Anyway, but still.
Anyway, it was, the people meet, they get to meet each other, they get to meet their guardians. We go over the entire trip in detail, what the orientation, what the itinerary is, just anything they need to know about the trip.
Yeah.
About the guardians now, if somebody is not a relative or acquainted with people, then do you have a waiting list of people who would like to be guardians?
Yeah.
We have a large list of people who have said they want to honor these gentlemen for what they did during the war. These ladies and gentlemen. We always have some ladies on the trip. They, the guardians don't have to be a relative. They pay $1,000 for the privilege of pushing these gentlemen and ladies around in a wheelchair as they view Washington, D.C. So
Wonderful. And they're screened, I suppose.
they're screened, yes. We interview them, and actually we get a lot of firefighters.
Really?
We, the locals, San Francisco, San Mateo, Fremont, just the different firefighters. We always have, I think, 2 to 5 or 6 EMTs, usually a couple of nurses. We've taken to taking our own nurse unassigned so that she can go to different veterans, make sure everything's okay. Washington, D.C. is very hot and humid sometimes, and it's a fairly grueling trip. I think these gentlemen put up with, we show them the whole city. How's that?
Yeah, right.
Wow,
Yeah.
so it's not, not for weaklings.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But we see a lot. We see a lot.
Yeah.
My guardian was sick when I was supposed to meet him, you know, and he called in sick, and I ended up being the guardian of Carl Stewart.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He was my man, you know.
My man.
Yeah. I
Unfortunately,
found out he was a captain of the Navy too.
yes, he's a supply corps captain.
Yeah, full
that
4 stripes and everything.
Yeah.
Well, then, did you bunk together, like you had a couple with your guardians, or did you room with your?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, separate beds, of course, you know. Anyway.
But you had a guardian and a person to each room.
Yeah.
Or,
Right.
Yeah.
So everyone's well cared for, and
We've been fairly successful. We've had 4 trips, and we've taken all the veterans out in good health, and they came back the same way they left. So we consider that success.
I'm sure they come back happy
Oh,
and proud.
and proud.
And
Yeah,
proud.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know that when you go to the airport to leave, you have given a grand send-off.
Right.
And when you return home, my goodness, there are all kinds of greeters there from various military organizations and bands. And there's actually the man who's directing this program today is in a bagpipe band, and he often will play at the airport and greet the military people coming in from Washington and I think other places too.
Yeah.
But it's, I think going to Washington, D.C. and having the impact of all the different wars and all the different monuments with people that you've actually worked with in the military just must be just a memory that you
Yeah.
well deserve. And you know, Thank you for serving us. We appreciate what you did, and you deserve that trip and that honor.
May I make a point?
Sure.
One of the things, I think they just skipped over it, but one of the things that I think they remember are the number of people on the street that came up.
Yes.
Oh, everybody, yeah.
They
Thank you for your service. Everybody
Thank you
said-
for your service, shake hands, big kiss, that type of thing. Just once we unload the veterans off the buses, get all the wheelchairs out, get them moving toward whatever a memorial we're looking for, they're like rock stars. I mean, people come in and thank them, and
a police escort everywhere.
but we have a
my.
police
And
escort.
Yeah.
there was a lot of great people at Washington that
Yeah.
worked, volunteered, the camera
Sure.
Yeah.
lady and the man that described where we were. All these people met us at the airport that come down and
I think it's interesting that the people who helped you are also people who serve.
Yes.
So they felt camaraderie with you as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
well, I'm so happy it was a wonderful trip, and thank you, John, for being involved in arranging these wonderful honor flights.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. I think this is good. Listening to the stories of these two gentlemen that are representative of the heroes that we're hoping to honor by getting them out to Washington, D.C. And I'm sure that getting the word out will get us some more veterans that are viewing this show.
Not many of us are left around, but
Well,
anyway.
there's still some.
I know.
But also the guardians.
Yeah.
People
Yeah, right.
volunteering.
Very
good.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for
All right.
serving us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks,
Thanks,
John.
Melvin.
Yeah.
We're so happy you joined us. It's been a great program having these guests with us, and it's been great having you with us too. Bye for now, and hope to see you next time.